Welcoming you to a life of awareness, the Presence Project is excited for you to join us for today's podcast with your host, Paul Kersner.
Hello and welcome to episode 71 of Are You Being Present? My name is Paul. I want to welcome you to the present moment. I want to welcome you to the here and now. And I want to thank you wholeheartedly, sincerely, and deeply for joining me in this amazing, wonderful, beautiful, unique, a truly treasure and miracle of a present moment. The title and topic of today's podcast is, Why Does Time Move So Slowly or So Quickly in the Present Moment? And this is a subject and topic that I have been discussing a lot lately with the patients I work with, and it's a topic that I've thought about and wanted to discuss when the time was right. And I feel that this is the right present moment to address this topic because it is so relevant to all of us. Each of us are going through a very subjective experience in our own present moments and present seconds, and the perception of time varies, and we wonder why time seems to move so quickly or so slowly. And I've thought about this a lot because there have been moments of my life that have gone by in a blink of an eye, and there have been moments that have moved really slowly. And it's hard to delineate or to understand why these things are happening if you don't zoom out enough or spend enough time to analyze what's going on, why it's going on, and what it's doing to the time that you're perceiving. The way time moves is a perception. It's not that time is moving differently at all. Your version of time might feel different than my version of time. But when we compare our watches or our clocks, time is moving exactly the same. It is the perception of time. It is the way that we see time, the way we experience time, the way we feel time. There'll be moments where you'll look down at the clock and a minute passes, and then you look down again and, an hour passed or 2 hours passed. There have been some times where you've blinked and a month has gone by. 6 months go by very quickly. And then there are times where time moves extremely slowly, almost to a crawl. And it feels like things are actually at a standstill. And I say feels like because it's not true. That's a perception because things appear stagnant. There's a very good reason why this is happening. And I addressed shifting perceptions in an earlier podcast. So perceptions are relevant, especially to this very specific topic of time. But I wanted to explain why time moves slowly or quickly, because it's important to have this understanding because it'll make things make sense for you as you're enduring whatever it is, whatever experience is happening for you, not necessarily to you, which is another perception. Time will slow down depending upon what experiences are happening in your reality. We are all here on earth to learn lessons. And there are peaks and valleys, there are ups and downs, there are times where we have reprieve, there are times where we are under an extreme amount of duress, under stress, where there are multiple things that are stimulating us. And when we are enduring specific life lessons, time will perceive to be slowing down for you. It's very important that you understand that this is a perception, and it is important because when you see time slow down, you can zoom out enough and understand that there are things that are being asked of you to pay attention to. Oftentimes when we get into a state of resistance, that's exactly when time slows down even more because we're resisting the lessons that we're being taught. If you're a nihilist, you could say that that's nonsense and everything's random. If you're an existentialist, this makes more sense because everything is connected. And I am at heart an existentialist and also a realist. I like to see things for how they are, and I talked about that in a couple podcasts ago about seeing people, places, and things for how they are, who they are, and where they are. The perception of time overlays this because when you're experiencing a slowdown of time, it's really important that you start seeing things for exactly the way they are. And to do that, you have to use all your presence tools to peel away any ego lens that might be happening that's overlaying your experience in that present moment that appears to be moving very slowly. Now, it's easy to discard this type of information and say that it's not true, but it has been my personal experience. It has been my clinical experience after sitting in front of thousands of patients and listening to them talk about how their perception of time feels so slow as they're enduring adversity. And I talked about this in another podcast as well, about enduring adversity and the need not to make stories, because your ego is right there as you're enduring adversity. And when we're enduring adversity, time will move slowly because there are so many lessons that are being taught all at the same time. And they're all cumulative. They all build upon each other. And there's a need for time to slow down. And then there's times where you're in a flow state and you're in a state of acceptance and things start to speed up and you gain momentum. And we've talked about momentum and the need for momentum to understand what momentum is and how to maintain it and gain it. And when you lose it, what that looks like. And it's not really lost, but it does seem like it's lost because time, again, seems to move very slowly. It's important to reflect at any given moment to think about what your perceptions are about time and how it's moving for you. And if you perceive that time has slowed down considerably, take some time to reflect and use your presence tools, whatever those are, even just to sit still and think about what's actually happening for you. Who's showing up? What's happening? How are you responding? Or more importantly, how are you reacting to the lessons and the people, places, and things that are being presented to you? There is of great value in time slowing down. And it does have a lot to do with your perception, but that's where all the lessons are really learned, and that's where all the changes are going to take place, because once time starts to pick up, everything starts to move again. You enter into that flow state, and you're just in motion. You're moving forward. Since we live in a reality of duality, the reality is in the third dimension that to know how time is moving slowly, you know how time moves quickly. I talk about duality a lot with my patients, and it's a topic I also pontificate on often, because in the third dimension, everything is relative to everything else. Wet to dry, hot to cold, light to dark. So time has to at times move quickly so that you know when time is moving slowly. It's not that you're being punished per se. It's not that things are bad per se. It's that there's a purposeful experience and reason for why things are moving so slowly, why it seems like time is being held and it's standing still. Yes, it is your perception of the moment, but there is great value and great purpose for taking one's time. And also remember that nothing lasts forever. The whole basis of presence is the remembrance that this moment is not going to last. So the time that seems to move so slowly for you, that you feel like you're suffering so much, it's not going to last, but you have to endure the suffering, and the suffering often slows time down. And there is a difference between experiencing suffering and self-inflicted suffering. And as we've talked about, the self-inflicted suffering is always at the hands of the ego. So as you're enduring suffering, time and your perception of time is going to be correlated together. And the suffering is going to make it seem like time is not moving at all. And then that's when the ego chimes in and it makes you believe that it's never going to end. The reality is that it will end, and there was a time before the suffering, there'll be a time after the suffering. But if you let your ego get the best of you, it feels like it's never going to end, and you start to believe that, and then you get stuck in a loop. And that's not helpful at all, and then you have to work your way out of it back to the present moment, and we do that through using our presence tools. But most importantly, and here is really the key, is looking to see if you're in a state of resistance, and if you are in a state of resistance, why are you resisting what's being presented to you? Why are you unwilling to make the changes that are being asked of you? Why are you holding on to something or someone so tightly? The best way, in my humble opinion, to move through this reality is through a loose grip, through hands that are open, not closed. But most of us, the majority of people in in the third dimension white knuckle it. They hold on so tightly to people, places, and things, and it creates so much suffering because of the impermanence, the impermanent nature of this reality. And so when you white knuckle it, when you hold on to things so tightly, time slows down as well, because you're in a state of resistance. You're holding on to things that you should not be holding on to people you should not be holding on to. Everything is constantly in a state of motion and change. And it is because of your resistance to whatever is showing up for you that is slowing time down. This topic of time and the perception of it is vital. It is a vital issue. It is a vital topic. It is vital because matrix conditioning uses time to control us. When you're governed by the programs that we're all raised with, we're all raised to believe that we have a limited amount of time. That time is always running out. And that definitely shifts our perception, the way we see time, because we see it as finite. And that puts us into a state of lack. And so we're always running around, rushing to get somewhere, thinking that we're going to be late. And the matrix conditioning that we're raised with to believe in a state of lack, especially in regards to time, interferes with our ability to gain momentum or sustain momentum, enter into a flow state where time moves more freely. Now, this is difficult to wrap one's head around in the beginning, because a topic like matrix conditioning, about the control mechanisms that exist within the clock, within the minutes, within the days, within the calendar, it challenges some of our core beliefs on how we have to operate. Now, there will be podcasts that are going to come up that I'm going to address matrix conditioning and the negative motivators, because the idea that we're running out of time is a negative motivator. It's not a positive motivator. And again, what it does to time is it either slows time down or makes time fast, but not fast in a good way, fast in a way where you feel like you don't have enough time. It's this conditioning and these control mechanisms that we need to address in the present moment to understand why we feel the way we do and shift them so we can get back to the present moment where everything is available for us and to us and with us. None of this is easy per se, but I wanted to take some present seconds and share them with you to address a topic like time, because it's something that we often take for granted and we don't spend a whole lot of energy really thinking about. We just assume, we make assumptions because we've lived a life that has been governed by time. But we haven't really spent time thinking about the perception of time. So hopefully this podcast will be insightful in the sense that you could start looking at how time is moving in your present moments, in your present seconds, how you feel about it. Are you in a state of reaction? Are you responding? What's actually going on for you? And how you can get back to the present moment, gain your presence again. Start accepting everything that's happening and showing up for you so that you can start to live more abundantly. Stop using negative motivators. Understanding what matrix conditioning is, that we're all a part of, that we've been raised in this society, and how to awaken and break free from it. Now, understanding what the matrix is a topic that I will soon discuss. I promise you that. But just this concept of the way that we're raised with time and the constraints that's built around it and the state of lack that it puts us in is very important for me to share with you, because it sets the trajectory for us to start digging deeper into the programming that has taken us out of the present moment, that has robbed us of our presence and put us into a state of lack using negative motivators. So I think that's a good point for me to pause, to end this specific podcast on time and express my gratitude for the ability to present this in a way that hopefully makes sense and allows you to zoom out and see things a little bit differently, to shift your perceptions just a bit, to recalibrate what's going on in your reality, to give you a little bit of relief, so that you stop using negative motivators, because the negative motivators are never going to get you to a positive place. And that is something I share often with patients, but it's something I remind myself too. Negative motivators are not going to get you to a positive place, ever. And the constraint of time, the idea that there's not enough of it, is a negative motivator. And it has everything to do with entering into being unable to enter into a state of abundance and maintaining a state of abundance. So with all that said, I want to thank you for sharing this time with me, and I wish you all peace.
Thank you for listening to the Are You Being Present podcast, brought to you by the Presence Projects. Remember, you have a choice. Choose to be present.